Good morning or good evening, Miss Maryke Musson, the super ocean impact extraordinaire. I've known Maryke for probably about 10 years, and Maryke has done some incredible work all over the world now. I met her in South Africa, which is the curator of the Two Oceans Aquarium and the Aquarium Foundation, which is for education and ocean conservation. And she got me involved in total rehab and all things to do with ocean impact and ocean life and ocean health and conservation. And I'm very fortunate to have her here today to talk ocean conservation, ocean health, and ocean impact. So Maryke, take it away and let us know a little bit more about what you do and who you are and what incredible work you do. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Chris. Well, it's always amazing and awesome to have a chat with you and to join you and to follow your crazy adventures. But a little bit more about myself. I'm a marine scientist, but I would actually call myself an ocean enthusiast, a little bit of a fish nerd, and I reckon a storyteller. So I really love working with people and the planet and to work with purpose and to look for opportunities to make a real difference and a positive impact. So my interests in my work include a lot of ocean conservation and research and education activities, and basically just inspiring people with like really cool stories and often also experiences to share information about how connected we are to each other and to the environment. And currently I'm back in the aquarium world. So I've been all over the place in South Africa and abroad, but yes, I'm back in sunny Africa and loving it and living right next to the ocean and just working with ocean stuff all day long.
That sounds great. You sound like you're back at home. And that's where your home is where your heart is, which is by the ocean. And I think you've probably inspired and connected so many people that I know with the ocean and falling in love with it and wanting to protect and respect it. So I think there are a lot of people out there that owe their ocean advocacy and the work that they do to be inspired by a lot of the stuff that you've been a very big part of. So thank you for being that change and being that inspiration to so many of us that have helped us make a big difference too. I know for me, definitely the total rehab side was a game changer for me and really connected me to purpose for ocean topics and ocean health. So appreciate it. Let's jump into some questions. Maryke, I know you've been involved in a lot of big projects all over the world, but I think specifically in South Africa, what are your sort of over the last 3 years, what has been your sort of bigger projects that you've done and being a part of and spearheading that's really made a big and significant impact for you? In what way?
Yeah, so I'll explain it in two ways, because firstly, we can jump back into sort of the aquarium world and my involvement in aquariums, because aquariums are really incredible spaces, introducing people to this magical underwater world to which a lot of people don't get the opportunity to experience, especially being, in the ocean and under the surface. So aquariums are these facilities that share a lot of knowledge and information, but it's also where we learn a lot about marine species and what we need to do to secure like a healthy future for our ocean and our planet. So through aquariums, we educate, we contribute tremendously to the conservation of marine species and often endangered and threatened species. And that's where the turtles come in. And I'll tell you about the turtle project, which I think has changed my life and probably a lot of other people's as well. But we also use research to contribute to the understanding of coastal and marine ecosystems so that we can learn how to look after these areas in a very sustainable manner. Now, as you know, as an ocean warrior, the ocean is really important. It covers 70% of the planet, and planet Earth should be called planet Ocean, right? So it produces oxygen for all of us so that we can breathe. And it gives us this beautiful space for recreational pleasure, just swimming in the ocean or going to the beach, or for crazy people like you, stand-up paddleboarding or foiling across an entire ocean. But it also provides millions of people with really healthy food. And fish and sea plants are some of the lowest carbon impact food sources you can find. So the ocean provides the world with a very important way of transporting, like you know all about transport across the ocean, but for goods and people. So it's a great source of like indigenous traditions and cultures and stories connecting generations and generations of people. So there are lots of reasons to love the ocean and look after it. And exciting positive impact activities that aquariums globally are involved in, of course, are the rescue, rehabilitation, and release of marine animals. So for various reasons, and most often due to our bad behavior as humans, animals get negatively impacted on. And sea turtles are once again a great example because they can swallow plastic bags or they get stuck in fishing gear. So aquariums offer this very caring environment where these patients are looked after and where they can heal, and then they can be released back into the sea when they're healthy. And these animals are the most incredible ocean ambassadors for ocean conservation, and they inspire people to care about each other and the environment. So in the last few years, I've been involved in incredible projects in conservation, research, education, but I think the most impactful project globally was sharing the release story of a very special turtle called Yoshi. And Chris, you know Yoshi because you spend a bit of time with Yoshi as well. And when we started tagging these bigger turtles, we realized that after rehabilitation, they actually don't just survive back in the ocean, they absolutely thrive. So the intent was to follow them and see how successful is this rehabilitation program. And Yoshi, of course, with her tag, decided to travel the world. And her journey was longer than 40,000 kilometers. I mean, it is just insane. It was a world record. I call her the GOAT. You know, she's the greatest of all, well, turtles and time.
Greatest of all time turtle.
Yes. And she crossed the Indian Ocean, you know, so you've done the Atlantic, you're going to do the Pacific, and Yoshi did the Indian Ocean, which was quite remarkable because it was like a world record. There's no report of a turtle crossing the Indian Ocean before she went from Africa to Australia. The Australians were like super chuffed because they immediately adopted her. But what we learned along the way was incredible because it was all about sea turtle migrations and behavior patterns and feeding grounds. And we made new scientific discoveries because of this incredible turtle. And it connected people all over the world. You know, Yoshi was like front page news everywhere. I was on interviews all over the world, and people loved the story, and they were so inspired to then change behaviors so that they could contribute to protecting the ocean, to ensure it's a safe space for Yoshi, but also for all marine animals. And that was just beautiful. She even inspired 2 children's books in the US. So I feel very, very privileged that I was part of the Yoshi story.
The celebrity turtle story.
100%. She's like, yeah, like we said, she's the goat, man. The first time ever that a turtle's actually a goat.
Maryke, that was the one turtle release that we actually did together, I think, with Steve and a whole lot of the team out off Cape Point, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, we used to do a big turtle release.
Tagged.
Yeah, every year. So we were with you, we did a whole lot of hatchlings. We did Otto and Winston and all of those, all the sea turtles, so the larger ones, because the tags, you know, you need like really mini little tags for the little ones. And the smaller the tag, the more expensive it gets. So all of those turtles had the most fascinating journeys and all completely different in some way. And when you think they're going to go up the East Coast, they go up the West Coast. When you think they're going to go up the West Coast, they go up the East Coast. But what's so amazing about these sea turtles is that they've got this built-in GPS. So it's quite clear that they know where they're going. And especially Yoshi's journey as well, because she, you know, like she loved eating. I mean, she was like a best favorite thing in the world was actually food. And we could see how she traveled as well, was really getting to these seamounts, which is like there's lots of choice of food, and traveling around coastal areas as well, and then across the ocean. When she got to Australia, the Australian researchers went looking for her because they were keen to re-tag her. And they didn't find her, but in the same area, they found 40 other loggerhead turtles feeding. And they never knew there was a sea turtle feeding site in that location. And that's why I said, like, she even contributed to scientific discoveries. So she's an absolute legend.
What I think that's one of the keys is a lot of people, some people don't understand the value of aquariums, and some people have negative connotations towards them for whatever reasons. But I think, when you realize like how much research and how much education and how much science comes from like the work that you do with these kind of projects, I think it makes people really aware that they're not there to just keep animals in captivity. They're there because a lot of it is, as you're very aware of, because you're getting these turtles in that were getting found or getting brought in from all over the coastlines of South Africa, from all different angles, to be able to rehab them and then see which ones you can rehab and then put back into the ocean. And I think you've got the numbers in regard to how many you're rehabbing, releasing back into the wild on an annual basis, and it was super significant. And then you look at the data and the science that's come from that, and how much that's impacted on knowledge, awareness, inspiration, conservation, how much it's increased the amount of donations and support that have come for collecting more science. And I think that's really what a lot of people miss, because a lot of these creatures also aren't able to get put back into the wild for whatever reason, and those ones are kept there, and they then obviously become educational. As you said, they're more animal hotels, so that they get to spend, if they're not able to get put back into the ocean because they're too damaged or have too many issues, then they get to sort of live out the rest of their life in a very happy environment, well fed and everything else, and become very educational for kids and for education. But if they can be rehabbed, then that's what happens, and they contribute to science and data, which goes back to helping everyone.
No, absolutely. The intent is always to get an animal back into the ocean after the rehabilitation process. But we do encounter non-releasable animals. So if the chances of such an animal is very slim to survive in the wild, then it would be irresponsible to put them back. So, but yeah, my intention is always, like, everybody gets all teary when they have to say goodbye to a rehab turtle, and I go like, yay, go free. However, we use these stories as well because the sea is a dangerous place. I mean, you know better than most, there's lots of scary things in the ocean that they encounter, and they've got to navigate around all these ships and fishing gear and fishing boats and predators. So their survival is not guaranteed. It's a tough life back in the ocean, but we definitely give them the best boost we potentially can. And yeah, of course, I mean, the purpose of a facility such as an aquarium is to educate, and you can only educate when you've got the right information, and you can only contribute to conservation if you have the right information. And that's what's really entrenched in that, like, the research and education side is the foundation of it all. And it's amazing to see what a difference we can make. And if I think about just being in Southern Africa, we've got an extensive coastline, but most South Africans have never been to the beach and have never seen the ocean. So how do we inspire such kids, because it's great to work with kids, to care about the environment and the ocean if they've never experienced it or have never seen it. So that really creates a significant purpose for facilities like aquariums, and they're facilities of care. We call them the marine biologists who work there like animal care staff. Everything's about the welfare and the care and the best husbandry of the animals under our care. It's like a huge responsibility. But yeah, with the right heart and the right passion, it's massively impactful.
Thanks, Maryke. That sounds amazing. And I know that maybe you can give some numbers in regarding to the amount of turtles that you used to be releasing with the Two Oceans Aquarium every year. And I think it's a lot more than people are aware of. And I think, as you said, the aquarium, for a lot of people, they never get to guard in the ocean, they never get to experience the ocean. So it's the only way that they can really experience what happens out there and learn to fall in love with it, and therefore want to protect and respect it. And I think that is the key. But I think, maybe give some numbers in regarding into turtle rehab and how much of an impact that makes, and how people find them, where they find them, and how they bring them in, because I think that's an interesting part of the story.
It is very interesting, and it's different along the coast. In Cape Town or the Western Cape, you get a lot of little hatchlings. The loggerheads nest up in KwaZulu-Natal and Mozambique, and then these little hatchlings jump into the Agulhas. Well, they don't jump; they like flip into the Agulhas current. And if they pop out of that, because that's a warm current, if they pop out because of bad weather or strong winds, they get really cold. And when they get cold, they actually just shut down, and they get pushed onto the shore. So we are all extremely reliant on people to find these poor little turtles on the beach, and to contact the Turtle Rescue Network, which stretches the entire coast. And depending where they are found, they might end up, well, at the Two Oceans Aquarium. The Education Foundation's got a phenomenal turtle hospital who cares for them. And then some might go to Bay World, which is in Port Elizabeth. And then some will end up at Sambra or SeaWorld in Durban. And in the Western Cape, you get all these little hatchlings, but high up the coast, we see far more adult turtles with injuries. So it might be shark bites, which we see quite a lot, or being stuck in discarded fishing gear, or just a turtle that's really ill and got a cold and just needs tender, loving care. And sometimes it takes 3 weeks to get them back and ready to health. Sometimes it takes 4 years, depending on what's wrong. And since I've been quite involved in the turtle rescue work, I mean, we've rehabilitated and released way more than 700 turtles over the last decade. And that's quite significant, bearing in mind that all turtle species are endangered, and that every single turtle that ends up in rehab would have died because it washed up on the shore somewhere. And turtles only go to shore, only the mature females to nest. So if you find a turtle that's not nesting in northern Natal or Mozambique or at other nesting sites all over the world, it means that turtle is compromised and needs some help. And the incredible facilities worldwide, actually, amazing facilities in the States. I've been to an incredible facility in Japan. There's an amazing facility in Dubai. So, and the Australians are really good at turtle care as well. So it's wonderful to see how, and sea turtles, of course, are indicator species. So, if you look at the health of a sea turtle, it gives you a really good indication of the health of the ocean. So the more sea turtles we find in trouble, the more we realize the ocean's in trouble. We need to do something about it. But because they're such charismatic animals, and they're just so amazing, they really inspire people to care. If like once you've released a sea turtle, you just like want to be a eco warrior forever and make sure that the ocean's a safe space.
Yeah, I think they're the creatures that really want to make you fall in love with the ocean, and they do very quickly, because they've got that character. And I think films like Nemo and what have you really also help with that, and want to make you want to protect them even more. And I think anybody, as you said, that's been involved in one of those turtle rehab or releases, or watch the amazing work that you guys do when you're cleaning them, and when you're feeding them at the aquarium, or when you're scratching their tummies, when they're getting fed at the aquarium. It's just such an incredible experience that it's hard not to really want to learn how to protect them in every way, shape, or form. And I think those stories really impact on a lot of people, and the work that's getting done is really incredible at all the organizations that you've been working with. I know I've seen it everywhere, and it's super inspiring. So thanks very much for that. What work and data and science is getting done at the moment that you are excited about, whether it be with the turtle migration, tagging and releasing and following of that data science, or where you at the moment in Durban?
Yeah, the turtle work is super exciting. So it's ongoing. And what's really wonderful is this great collaboration. So we've got a massive national and international database. So everybody's contributing to the data. But if we think about sort of different projects within the aquarium space, there are lots of really cool projects that I work on that really drive sort of social and environmental impact. And two of the projects that I really enjoy at the moment is really working on sort of species survival plans and also growing formal and informal education. So aquariums usually are home to like a really large diversity of species where animal care and husbandry are really focus areas. And that leads to like really well-managed breeding programs of lots of these different fish species, which is amazing because we learn a lot about the breeding behavior, the juvenile stages of this fish, the environmental needs that they have to thrive. So, and this also gives the aquarium the ability to then stock their own exhibits with fish that they actually breed and to share fish with other credited facilities, meaning it becomes like really wonderful in like a circular model that you don't have to rely on collecting specimens anymore. And that's great because, as you know, I do have a background in aquaculture and just raising little babies, so little fish nurseries. But from an educational perspective, it's really important to get youngsters to understand our impacts on the planet so that we can have this really inspired generation of future decision makers being fully aware of how to live sustainably to benefit people, but also the planet. So I always have to combine it. People are really important in this whole space of where we work. So we really want to get like all education departments all over the world to incorporate more environmental education opportunities in school curriculums, but also something that I'm really passionate about is to really include Indigenous knowledge and this cultural connectedness into what we share because around the ocean, because I think social science around the ocean is as important as the biological and physical science part, which we've been good at. And it makes it really exciting to know that we can grow this like storytelling aspect because a lot of the global ocean heritage and Indigenous knowledge were not necessarily translated into publications, but it's been passed on like from generation to generation through stories. So I really want to research all these stories in all areas of the world, because when we connect cultures to their ocean heritage, I think we will inspire even more and we'll understand a lot more. And that excites me a lot.
Yeah, I think, and you've always done a lot of work on the educational side. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much the educational narrative and theme has been a big part of the aquariums that you've been involved with in the past, specifically the Two Oceans Aquarium and the Two Oceans Education Foundation. And I know you're a very big part of setting that all up. And I think when I did that, the paddle across the Atlantic, we were racing the virtual turtle across my journey, and the little videos and what have you we integrated in with the classroom sessions there. And I think we worked out, we reached sort of like between 50 and 70,000 kids over that sort of 3 to 4 months. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of like the amount of like the little classrooms you had there and the education curriculums that you had built in, and the amount of education and the amount of people and kids that go through those educational curriculums and classrooms, and how much they get out of those very personalized sessions where they get to touch and to the little exhibits that you guys have with the anemones and everything else. And that's where most kids are only getting the first sort of experience of the ocean, and that's where they get excited and inspired, and that's what makes them want to make a lot of change. I know that one of my little girls that I sort of mentor, we put through one of the educational platforms with you guys at the Two Oceans Foundation, and she became super inspired and is now studying ocean science. And that's a great example of like when people get connected with nature and connected with people that are inspiring, doing incredible things for for and within the oceans, they really do want to go out and then get active, take action, and help be part of the positive change that we want to see around. So tell us a little bit about more the education side for you, and for how important that is, and how we can all be better in that space to be able to make more impact, inspire more change from our youth.
Yeah, so I think the purpose of any aquarium is really to educate. So the exhibits and the experience is actually designed to, in a fun way and subtly, to educate all visitors, but with a big emphasis on school children. So most facilities actually have amazing classrooms. A lot of facilities have got fantastic outreach programs, and that's very close to my heart, because there are so many schools and areas, especially in South Africa and Africa, who do not have the resources to visit a facility such as an aquarium. So, I mean, I think all the aquariums in Southern Africa, at least, actually have programs where they go out to under-resourced areas and take these amazing ocean inspirational stories to kids and introduce them. Because to kids, it's like really almost like alien. You know, if the first time they see anemone, as you mentioned before, it's like, what in the world is this? And just to connect them, and what we want to really achieve is for everybody to realize that water connects everything, and it connects us all, of course, as well. And that doesn't matter if you live inland, you know, if there's a river or it's in a kind of a water body, ultimately it ends up in the ocean. So it's all connected. So we need to really care for it. But we really want to teach respect. And if you teach kids to, like, firstly respect themselves and their family units and their friends and their area, you know, it rolls over into really respecting the environment as well. And that's really important, because the environment offers a beautiful place where you can just enjoy yourself and be inspired. And I think for a lot of people, especially nowadays, is we don't get the opportunity to just be back in nature. And that's where we all from, you know, 100 years, 500 years, a million years ago, is we're supposed to be in nature and experience that. So on the education side, aquariums have got phenomenal programs, literally from, you know, early childhood development, so little 3-year-olds, all the way through to university level. And something that's significant that the Two Oceans Aquarium and the Aquarium Education Foundation initiated was the actual curriculum in marine science that was adopted by the South African Education Department, meaning that kids can take it as a school subject from grade 10 to 12. And that's amazing. And the intent wasn't to suddenly have all these new marine biologists, but so that kids, whether you're going to be a business person or in retail or a banker or whatever you're going to be in one day, so that you're really aware of the environment and the ocean space. And the marine science curriculum includes all aspects related to coastal areas and the ocean. So it's sort of feeds into geography and maths and physical science and social science and history. It's incredible. So that was a massive milestone from a more academic perspective, but it's also got obviously a lot of like practical, you know, aspects to it. And we launched this just before lockdown. And then, which is like lockdown was, well, a challenge to the world and still is, but we then just took everything online, which meant we could reach kids all over the country and the world. And when we realized, if we consider the South African environment is not that many kids actually have got access to the internet, we partnered with schools, as soon as schools went back to actual school again, to schools in under-resourced areas who actually had connectivity. So we really pushed our impact in the under-resourced areas through literally entering through the computer screen classrooms in schools that's not even near the ocean or under-resourced, or would never be able to take this kind of course or subject if it weren't for being able to be connected virtually. So it was incredible to be able to connect like that. But of course, you know, nothing's really better than doing the real thing and firsthand education programs. And I'm proud to say that all the aquariums that I've worked with globally have got a very clear emphasis and focus on driving, sharing information, because when you share information, you empower people and at the same time inspire people to then make responsible choices. And that's significant, and that's what we need to keep pushing. And when we did all these online courses as well, to retain the attention, we used to show them what we do in Turtle Rehab. And it was just mind-blowing for these kids and the participants. They were just amazed at the wonderful work and impactful work. And of course, everybody fell in love with sea turtles, and it made them so excited. And that's really the purpose of education, is to get kids excited about learning skills and information that they can apply to create a better life for themselves, as well as actually for everybody around them and for their environment. And ocean science is incredible because it offers so many opportunities. You can, if you go into sort of the marine space, you can literally become, a scientist, I suppose, a teacher. You can become a commercial diver. You can become a captain on a vessel. You can become a fisherman or fisherwoman. And it's so nice to expose youngsters to the opportunities that the ocean offers, as long as we do it in a very sustainable manner.
Great answer to a really good question. Thanks very much, Maryke. So I know that we on this journey through the Wing Project, we're contributing towards the Ocean Science department as well, and some of the outreach programs through the Two Oceans Foundation. So super impactful, always been very supportive of that. So I really enjoy that. I know that on this journey, I'm going to see a lot of different creatures that might be slightly different this year and this expedition compared to the one that I did 3 or 4 years ago across the Atlantic when I was racing the virtual turtle with you. What do you think I'm going to be seeing? Because obviously the migrations, there are a lot of species that also migrate across all different oceans, because it is one ocean. But do you want to give me an idea of what you think I'm going to be seeing a lot of on my journey across the Pacific, especially as I'm going to be going sort of from the mid-California coastline, very far south, almost past Guadalupe area, and then across the Pacific to Hawaii? Do you think I'm going to see a lot of very different and unique species? And what migrations do you think I'm going to be being a part of?
You're going to have an amazing journey, and you're going to see lots and lots of animals, I reckon, because the Pacific Ocean basin, and I also call it a basin because, I totally believe in the one ocean. And, it's the deepest ocean basin. It's the biggest ocean basin. And it's incredibly diverse with beautiful nutrient-rich water. So you're going to encounter lots of different animals. It's also got a lot more islands than the Atlantic Ocean, which might be a good thing if you need to do a little pit stop every now and again.
Or if I miss my target.
At least there's another stopover with nice tropical water. But unfortunately as well, the Pacific Ocean has this great Pacific garbage patch where the currents congregate, it's about 80,000 tons of marine litter into these floating islands, which is bigger than France. So I'm hoping you'll be able to navigate around that. But it's really important to actually make people aware about the kind of plastic pollution that you probably will encounter. And then if we quickly think about the Atlantic Ocean, that's the second largest ocean basin. So you're stepping it up, man. You're going bigger. And it's well known for its fishing grounds. And actually in the Atlantic, there's been a lot of overfishing as well. So in the Atlantic, I can't remember, but you probably would have seen quite a lot of ghost fishing gear, which is like lost and discarded fishing gear, which is terrible. So from a negative impact in the Atlantic, you almost encounter more animals getting stuck in these floating or lost nets and fishing lines. But there's more diversity in the Pacific Ocean. So if we think about marine mammals, there's lots of different species. So you're definitely going to see some beautiful whales. And I would guess more humpback whales, but there are quite a few species of whales. And there are lots of dolphins. You'll definitely see bottlenose dolphins. You'll probably see those spinner dolphins. They're amazing. And you might see humpback dolphins, and they're lovely, and they're quite shy. And quite close to shore, you might get to see dugongs, and they're very cool. They're grazers. They're like sea cows. And in the past, people used to think they're mermaids, so they're very nice. And then, interesting enough, actually 6 of the 7 turtle species are all found in the Pacific Ocean. So I reckon you'll definitely see green turtles, loggerheads, and hawksbills, because the Pacific Ocean actually supports the biggest populations of these species. I think you may see a sea snake or 2, which will be pretty cool. But then keep your toes on the craft, I would recommend. And then there's lots of sharks. Let's get onto the sharks.
Oh, I don't know if you want to get onto the sharks.
No, sharks are cool, man. There are more than 30 species of sharks in the Pacific Basin. And
so you'll definitely most of, Maryke?
Yeah, so you're going to see a lot of friendly sharks. I would think you're going to see some 7-gills, and they're very friendly. You should see quite a few hammerheads, actually, because they also often swim near the surface. And I'm hoping, and I'm sure you will see the gentle giants, some whale sharks. But there are also some great white sharks, but they're usually quite coastal. But they like seals. They don't like humans, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, and like everything, they're more just inquisitive than anything else. And they just want to come around and see what I am. And this time around, I painted the bottom of the flying impy fish, so it looks like an orca. So hopefully it's a great decoy.
You might even see orcas, actually, departing from the West Coast there.
I hope one doesn't get excited by the underlooker under my craft and want to come up and try to mate me.
It's going to come and greet your craft. And then if we think about fish, you'll definitely, I would imagine you'll see some nice tuna and marlin, like surface feeding. And I won't be surprised if they're little pilot fish, like your stripy fish that you had in the Atlantic crossing. There might be some of those as well. And then there are lots of bird species, because it's a big migratory route. So it will be very cool. I won't be surprised if you actually see an albatross or a few albatrosses, actually. So
Maryke, that's actually one of the people that we interviewed does a lot of research and did a PhD from Sea Shepherd that did a PhD on the albatrosses, and she said that I'll probably see a lot of those. She's specialized in the marine seabirds that I'll see on the journey, so it was fascinating to hear her take on that. She did a lot of work in Midway Island and obviously the plastic pollution, and we talked quite a lot about the plastic pollution, how much that's affecting the seabirds, the sea life, how that's getting transferred to the chicks, and how also the ghost fishing gear that you mentioned, which significantly affects not only the seabirds that are getting tangled, but also the turtles, the dolphins, and everything else. So yeah, fascinating to just hear the education on that and the science that's been discovered on how much of an impact that does make. But very interesting to see and hear about that type of creatures, kind of not only marine life that we'll see, but also the bird life as well, which is incredible to be a part of.
And you'll also encounter a bit of algae and sea plants. I would imagine when you depart, you might see some cool kelp forests. So there's a lot. And I would say you'll probably see more marine animals on the Pacific crossing. But I'm very excited to get like all the messages and have a quick call and like, what did you see today, and logging it all, because that's amazing information. Because of course, you're in a very unique position where you're on a craft that's very quiet. And I think animals, won't just scatter when they hear you or see you. So I think you're going to have really wonderful experiences with marine life during your crossing.
Maryke, you know that last time when I was out there, I think I sent you a couple of pictures of a couple of turtles that I saw, and that one turtle which was very docile, which I thought was a green turtle, but it was actually I think
it was a loggerhead.
It was a juvenile loggerhead, and he looked like he had these really weird spikes and big claws.
Little dinosaur.
Like a little mini dinosaur with a shell.
Yeah.
And is that a great example of juveniles and how they how they sort of reshape themselves as they grow into themselves and their shell and turn into an adult. Is that how their transformation?
Yeah, so what's interesting with sea turtles is, I mean, you would think turtles grow really slowly because they live so long. You know, they can live for 80 years. But as juveniles, they actually grow really quickly, especially when you watch them grow. So when they're under rehab, and we've had a few that come in as like little 20-gram animals, and we release them when they're over 500 grams, often up to a kilo. But we had one that had a really terrible ear infections and ear problems. He stayed a bit longer. And after about a year and a half, he's like little dinosaur spikes also popped out. It was so nice to see, and he's like grown into it now. So it's just going through those phases, and every turtle's different. So sometimes in the way they look, they're like humans, man, and their personalities as well. And for me, it was an interesting experience because like basically a scientist, I suppose. Well, I am. And scientists generally, you know, you don't give a lot of sort of personality to animals that you work with, but it has been so amazing to experience the different characteristics of all the animals. And I'm not just talking sea turtles. Sea turtles are very obvious. I mean, you've met Bob, you met Yoshi. They were completely different animals. But even fish. And it's just incredible to see that you get the more shy, quiet ones, you get the boisterous ones. And that's an incredible experience, and also really nice in storytelling, because as a human, you know, you can identify with a lot of these animal characteristics. And when you identify with something, I believe it makes you care a bit more as well. Sure. So yeah, the turtles, yeah, they do have their different looks and shapes and sizes and personalities.
Hard not to fall in love with the turtles and get connected. They almost like they become like family. And I know they definitely did for you, especially with Bob and with Yoshi. Hard to let them go. It's like letting go of a child into the big wide world. You're like, no. But when you're tracking them, at least you get to track them. You know?
No, I find great pleasure in releasing them, because, you know, then it's a success story. Because the only reason we got to look after them is because they were going to die. And then putting them back in their own environment is incredible.
Yeah, and then watching them thrive and really just going out into the world and really exploring and doing what they were born to do, and it's incredible to be able to watch that, but only be able to do that through the tagging and the science and the research that comes back from that. Exactly what you do, which has never really been done before on that scale, to that capacity, for that period of time, which is phenomenal. And I think the data and the science is still, as you're aware, getting utilized all over the world.
Yep, it's really impressive.
Maryke, what I know we're going a little longer than we thought, but that's okay. It does tend to happen when we talk about the things we love in the ocean. It's our passion as well. So I get it. What have you found has been the greatest challenge in ocean education, ocean conservation, sort of over the last 5 to 10 years? And what do you think is the greatest solution, if we're talking solution-driven thinking and the right way to be able to be part of the solution and not part of the problem? What are solutions that you've really noticed have a dramatic positive effect on everything that's happening out there at the moment?
So from I suppose a challenge perspective, I mean, I actually think the biggest challenge is to convince and inspire people to actually stay optimistic and believe that we can still make a change. You know, so many people state that, it's too late to make a difference. You know, it's the end of the world. Like, you know, it's like, you know, we can't do anything about it. And I completely disagree with that. You know, every positive action makes a difference. And if you put lots of little positive actions together, it makes a big difference. So I think from an ocean education perspective, it's just, you know, we need to get sort of adequate opportunity to inspire the youth. And from a conservation perspective, to get adequate support and resources to really make a difference. And we need to balance this sort of social and environmental impact work. So being part of the solution is actually really easy if you keep it really simple. And, you know, one of the real challenges in the science world is you get all this information and data, and somehow you've got to create a story that most people can understand, and then it's a call to action, you know, and change behaviors based on the science. So part of the solution is really to tell good, positive, inspiring stories so that people want to do the right thing and people want to contribute and people want to be part of creating a beautiful space and be part of loving the ocean and be part of seeing a future for all of us and not be so negative. So part of my solution is just throwing love and light at everything and everybody, and then just direct and manage it where we can. So I'm extremely hopeful and optimistic. And it was great to return back to Africa after my time in Europe, because I believe so strongly that we can make a big difference here, and people are really open to positive, inspiring stories, because it is tough, surviving here and living here, but it's also just amazing. And we've got the most incredible environment and biodiversity. It's so unique because we've got these two incredible different ocean basins that meet along our Southern Cape coast. So we've got incredible species diversity, and it's an exciting place to be. And people got to stay hopeful. There's a lot that we can do.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Just being positive and also taking action, and each and every day in some small way. If we all take action, that culmination of millions of people doing that creates massive change, and that's all like really what the 17 SDGs is also about, is collaborating for success, collaborating towards the goals. And like you're doing with the aquariums there as well, is also sharing knowledge, sharing fish, sharing the knowledge in order to be able to take a lot of those species forward and to be able to help them multiply successfully and return them back to their balance. And I think getting, like, as we've all realized as well, when you inspire the youth like you do through getting them connected to the ocean, that's what helps want to make them connected with the ocean, want to learn more about it, and then learn to fall in love with it, protect it, and respect it. So yes, all for the same reasons, same impact. Keeping stoked, inspired, and passionate about it is what we do best. And I know that's definitely something that you're a great ambassador for in every way, shape, or form. So thanks for that, Maryke.
Well, back at you, Chris, because I don't know anybody else who's as stoked and like ocean passionate as you, and that's very special, and it's super. And I think it's hugely impactful, because it's like everybody wants to follow you and your stories, because it's amazing, sometimes very intense and scary, but generally just like full of energy and ocean stoke.
I'm very excited to be able to hopefully collect a lot more data and give feedback on a sort of a weekly basis in regarding to all the different creatures that I'm going to see out there, and then also collect a lot of data and science in regarding to the microplastics that I'm going to be trawling with a little mouth that's actually getting developed for me at the moment, which is 300 microns, which is a little mini manta trawl that's going to be the first ever suction cup on the side of my craft that I'll be filtering the microplastics, and then also collecting samples on the pH level samples, the acidity, and then also, I guess, you're also a carbon specialist as well. And that's a sort of a different topic, but I think just one I really just wanted to touch on before we go today is obviously carbon sequestration and the amount of carbon in the ocean and how that affects everything, and what we can do to be able to offset that, because as you know, with this project, and like with my last project, we planting thousands of mangroves to be able to offset the carbon footprint of the project, to be able to not only make it carbon net neutral, but actually positive in a lot of ways. And I know that a lot of people aren't really aware of the impact of carbon in the ocean, which absorbs obviously a lot, and how much that impacts on climate change, how it impacts on the toxicity of the ocean. So do you want to just touch on that a little bit, because I know that you're very informed on that, and you've got a lot of knowledge and experience.
Yes, I think the most important thing really is that we need to educate people and like, what is it? Because, climate action, climate change, carbon emissions, it's like big words. It sounds very sciencey. And, when you realize what it is, and when we sort of just simplify it as much as possible, then it means everybody can contribute to reducing our carbon emissions. So, or greenhouse gas emissions. And, that contributes to greenhouse gases, or carbon contributes to global warming. So it warms up the atmosphere. And of course, it contributes to lowering the pH, so making the ocean a lot more acidic. And then it's not a great environment for many species. And I think one of the very important indicator species would be corals, because they get bleached. And also, if the ocean warms up, and it's a slow process, but it's happening, then fish populations or marine species populations start shifting around, because the environment is not sort of, I call it their set point, it's not at their optimal set point. So they move around. But if we just get back to carbon, carbon's emitted, through burning fossil fuels. So basically, when we generate non-renewable energy or electricity, especially, it's very, very relevant in a South African context, because we don't have much renewable energy here. And we also, so as individuals, we need to be mindful of how much energy we use, where we source it from. Do we have access to solar? Can we install solar? And then also creating waste. So the amount of waste you create and the kind of waste you create will contribute to carbon emissions. And when you reduce your waste, which is ideal, or you recycle, then it reduces your carbon emissions. And then, of course, if you burn fuel in your car, that creates a lot of carbon emissions. If you take lots of flights, that also adds to carbon emissions, and excessive use of fresh water. So when you're mindful of how you go about in your everyday life, you can actually start reducing your own carbon emissions. And you can almost do a mini carbon footprint for yourself based on literally just electricity usage, fuel usage, and how you manage your waste. But there are amazing projects where carbon is captured out of the atmosphere and then stored, because you want it out of the environment to have a lower impact. And one of the best ways to remove carbon from the atmosphere is through these natural carbon sinks, and like you mentioned, mangroves and also forests. So planting trees is amazing, because you can create natural forests which will live for potentially hundreds of thousands of years, and you create more natural environment and natural space. So we all should play our part to protect these amazing natural carbon sinks. And otherwise our atmosphere will continue to warm up too much, and that will impact the ecosystems and ourselves.
Maryke, I think that's a really great summary. I think a lot of people really battle to understand the link between it all. And when you talk about, the burning of the fossil fuels and what have you, that creates more carbon in the atmosphere, that creates temperature rise, which then affects the oceans, affects the ocean temperatures and the toxicity, which brings down the pH levels. So it's all connected. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much everything is connected, and everything is connected really through the ocean, because then the ocean then absorbs it. There's a lot more carbon in the ocean, makes it more acidic. That affects the coral bleaching, also affects the temperature. The amount of temperature increase then makes the polar regions melt quicker, so everything increases. Then the sea level rises, and I think a lot of people don't realize that it's all connected, and it's
totally all connected. And added to that is, just if we come back to sea turtles again, what's interesting is, if global warming continues, then it will have a big impact on an animal like a sea turtle, because it's really incredible. Like, the females come to land, they make a little nest in the sand, they lay their eggs, and at a very specific day during the development of these eggs, if the temperature is quite warm, all the turtles will turn into little females. And if it's like slightly colder, they will be male. But if it's just like the perfect set point temperature, you'll get 50-50. So the warmer the terrestrial environment or beaches will be in future, the less chance of having male sea turtles, and female sea turtles won't ultimately survive without males to be able to reproduce. So there's incredible scientific examples of how global warming can impact on the survival of many species, including long term humans, of course, as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to sort of wrap up that sort of session and that sort of topic, because as we said, everything's connected, but it's not only connected. If everything isn't in balance, when the balance goes out, it so dramatically affects every single ecosystem's balance, and that affects our balance and our potential existence as well. So it's not only that we want to fall in love with the ocean to be able to protect it, but it's actually to protect ourselves, because the ocean doesn't need us. We need the ocean. We need our environment. And I think that goes into a really nice segue into the last sort of question for today, which is just really, what sort of tips can you give everyone out there? Because I think the world talks a lot about all the problems and the challenges out there, and it's too big and it's overwhelming. People feel often just completely overwhelmed, so they end up paralyzed by fear and not being able to do anything. And I think it's very important to be able to give people solutions and give people options and actions that they can take individually, and then maybe out in their own business or in their life, to be able to make a less of a negative impact and more of a positive impact. So what tools and tips can you give in regarding to how individually we can all make a difference, and how we could make a difference if we are part of a bigger organization?
Okay, so I like keeping it simple, of course, and I always like suggesting actions that's quite realistic, so that we can easily contribute to looking after the planet. So, for instance, trying to avoid single-use plastic as much as possible. And that's becoming more and more easy because the world is so aware. It's so amazing to think that nowadays it's completely frowned upon to use a straw, where 5-7 years ago it was more normal. And that just shows you the power of awareness and a small change. So yeah, if everybody's aware of single-use plastic and really reducing it as much as possible. And then also it's very easy to support like a coastal or a river cleanup. Or if you go to the beach, I like the concept of take 3 for the sea. So a lot of organizations, they go to the beach and pick up everything you see. And then actually, that's not going to the beach anymore. That's just doing a cleanup every day. And yes, it will be great if people do that, but then you don't have a beach walk. So it's just pick up, a couple of things. It makes a difference ultimately. But really just be aware of how we treat waste and be responsible. And then also supporting sort of sustainable choices when you go shopping, especially when you're selecting seafood. And there are choices, and not just seafood, like any form of food and products. There really are sustainable choices. For some of it's still too expensive, but it's a phased approach. And really, if people are just staying positive and keeping a good mindset, we can get there. So there are lots of little things we can do. And these are just 2 very easy examples. And when it comes to businesses and corporates, what's actually really amazing is that most businesses, especially sort of big corporates, are very aware of their ESG impacts, meaning that they monitor and they measure and they report on their environmental and social and governance impacts and activities. So this is contributing to many businesses actually doing good. And what they've realized as well is if they're aware and they operate smartly, they potentially reduce their energy requirements, for instance. So they save money and the planet at the same time, which is great. So I believe if a company is not doing a carbon analysis every year, then they're definitely not cool, and they're most likely contributing to global warming. So it has become sort of an international, almost standard and expectation that big corporates contribute significantly to social and environmental impact. And I like the fact that we've got to see it together. It has to, people and planet works together. So if we all stay really optimistic and passionate about the environment, that will have a positive impact on ourselves and the planet. and of course the ocean. So it's actually really easy to make a difference.
Thanks, Maryke. So I know that you've done amazing work with the Two Oceans Foundation, and they do some amazing work. So I think people can donate and get involved and support by donating to those kind of charities and foundations that are doing amazing work for ocean and for planet and for education. Are there also, I know that you've only just recently moved over to your new amazing position, heading up part of the Sharka Aquarium. Are there any tags and links or things that people can do to help and support your new role or your new organization that you're working for? Tell us a little bit about that as we finish off.
Yeah, so I actually believe that there's so many organizations with the same vision, and so any support towards educating kids or driving conservation projects, visiting facilities like Two Oceans Aquarium, Bay World, Ushaka Marine World. We're talking about Monterey Bay, Osaka Aquarium, Sydney Aquarium, all over the world. That in itself contributes to conservation. So even if people just visit, a big portion of their ticket goes into this really strong education work. But they're incredible organizations. I mean, if we just think about, globally and locally in South Africa, who do fantastic community and environmental work. And yeah, it's like a quick Google search to see. They're just, I can give you 100 organizations who need support. And a lot of these organizations, of course, are non-profit organizations. So the foundation is the organization I'm working for. Sombra is a non-profit organization. So they're quite reliant on donations to continue doing the good work. And being a non-profit organization, and most of these organizations are also public benefit organizations, there are lots of tax benefits of supporting it, but ultimately it's good karma. But I always say, start at home, start changing behaviors, being passionate about the environment, caring about people, and that will filter out in support for all these organizations. So, but yeah, thanks for that.
Maryke, just to wrap up, thanks very much for all your help and your support and everything you do, inspiring positive change. And it's such a big part in the education and the rehab side, and releasing all those turtles wouldn't be possible. They wouldn't have the crazy lives adventuring all over the oceans if it wasn't for you and for people and that are doing such amazing work like you. So I'm really looking forward to this new adventure and being able to get lots of inputs and feedback from you about all the different creatures that I'm going to see out there, and all their little characteristics, which you always help me with, which are all part of the important storytelling across these incredible journeys to inspire people to connect with the ocean, you connect with nature and God, and have your own adventure so you fall in love with it, want to protect it and respect it. So Maryke, thank you very much. Is there any last words of wisdom and insight you want to leave with the world today as we depart on these Ocean in Motion classroom sessions?
I just want to say thanks to you, actually, because you're also bringing incredible stories, ocean stories, to everybody worldwide. So you've got a massive audience, and that helps a lot. And it's just to encourage people to be like Chris, be a little bit mad and be full of fun and full of energy and full of ocean passion, or any passion, so that helps a lot. So with a positive attitude, we can achieve a huge amount. And I've been really lucky that I've worked with incredible teams. So I always have to credit, people, end of the day. And the sea turtle rescue stories made me really believe in the goodwill of people, because we wouldn't have been able to save a single sea turtle in the turtle hospital if somebody didn't pick it up and cared enough and drove it all along the way to bring it to be cared for. So I'm super optimistic about the future and about the goodwill and caring power that humans have. And I think you also experience and see that, and you of course live it, because your heart is giant. So thank you, Chris.
I think it's an example of what Yoshi is all about. Together we can make a difference and make the world a better place, and just keep swimming.